When I was a kid, the most captivating feature of my most played game, Oblivion, was the fact that every NPC followed their own schedule, resulting in 900 NPCs somehow working together in a somewhat fucked up harmony, where in half your game saves, a core NPC gets murdered before you ever meet them because some NPC they had beef with ran into them before you. That was over a decade ago though, so what's doable with today's technology? Shadows of Doubt is a display of that very concept. If you're somewhat into game design, then you've probably heard of a one-block RPG and what the game designer of Deus Ex, Warren Spector, has to say about it. That being, my ultimate dream is for someone to be foolish enough to give me the money to make what I call the one-block role-playing game, where we simulate one building, one city block perfectly. Now take that very concept and put the player in that world as a detective who has to solve procedurally generated crimes with evidence that is also procedurally generated. Instead of trying to explain further, let me just demonstrate the first case I solved in this game, as every single person who watches this video then plays it is going to have a different experience. As I was sprinting up and down a staircase trying to see how fast I could go, I got an alert stating that there had been a murder at 801 Everett Terrace. So I went to City Hall to collect the resolution form which laid out 5 criteria. That being, identify the full name of the murderer, find evidence that places the murderer at the scene, identify the murder weapon, locate the murderer's house, and optionally arrest the murderer. Upon getting to the scene, I realized I'd have to find a way in.
Oh, thanks, man.
Or not. At this point, I realized I wasn't a police detective, but instead a vigilante detective, who's motivated by accruing social credits by solving murder cases to escape the Cola Corp. I wanted to make this a joke about the CCP, but the base game story is funny enough. Re-entering the building after the police had left allowed me to inspect the crime scene, as well as the body. This showed that the victim was slashed with a bladed weapon, and also allowed me to get more information about their identity as well as their fingerprints. Of course, I also robbed the victim's safe. I'm sure there's no issues with leaving my fingerprints all over this fresh murder scene. Regardless, every building/home generally has a store of files associated with the NPCs that work or live there, generally in a closet in their bedroom or a drawer in an admin office, for example. Within, I found our victim's name, Eyoto Miyamoto, and as a result, more leads like their workplace. As I finished up the files and went to get fingerprints of the scene, this happened.
You fuck off, dude.
Yet again, re-entering the scene allowed me to find this discarded receipt for a place called Vulture Grill, as well as Eyoto's ID and wallet, which I promptly nabbed the $62 and key to the apartment stored within. There was also this writing and what looked to be blood on the other side of the wall from the murder. I assume this is some kind of generation bug and it was supposed to be on the other side. Regardless, it's literally hieroglyphics, and I still can't decipher it now while editing. Anpad? Dapna if the texture's backwards, maybe? Anyway, I also got a bunch of prints that were not Eyoto's, and found a heel print size 11. Coincidentally, I remembered Eyoto had heels in his closet, so I checked the size and found that they were size 10. A discrepancy which is solidified by the fact that an inspection of Eyoto's corpse said he was size 10, so we can safely assume our murderer is in size 11 heels. That's not all though. When I moved Eyoto's DX Racer gaming chair out of the way, I found a note which I had to of course pick up, immediately drop on the floor, and then read. The note made just as much sense as the cave scrawlings I found next to the bathroom, but at least I could read the letters. It said, "Let's play Hotnowius." Now, I've never heard of the game Hotnowius, but I can't imagine Eyoto is leaving notes around and reminding himself to play it, so we can also assume this is written by the murderer, which also provides the context that it's probably an anagram. Well, not probably, pretty obviously. Eyoto's computer password was also in his bedside drawer, but that only contained more info on Eyoto and some scam emails he had received. The telephone wasn't much use either. Unfortunately, the murderer didn't call Eyoto beforehand to inform him that he was going to be murdered, but the contact book next to the telephone could be of use. Clearly written by Eyoto himself, it's a pretty known fact that generally victims of murderers knew the perpetrator, so I kept this on the case board. Speaking of the case board, this is what it looks like now that I'm done with Eyoto's house. With basically every lead pointing us to his workplace, I go to investigate so we can potentially get closer to our objective. Considering this game is an immersive sim, and we are a vigilante detective, there's a considerable amount of work that's been put into breaking and entering mechanics, which didn't really get displayed at Eyoto's, but will definitely get displayed at his workplace. That's because we're breaking into Arasaka's samurai. Wait, sorry, it's the wrong game. We're breaking into City Hall because Aoto was an enforcer for the Epsilon Division, a branch of the police force. Looking at the employees' photos on the board, it's clear I found the right place. However, the main office is closed and has someone in it, so I waited for it to be later and for assumedly Harriet Svoboda, the only employee other than Aoto, to leave so that I can break in and use the computers. This goes fine until I tamper with the security system, which goes off, and as a result, I proceed to immediately break both my legs by jumping off the 4th floor balcony, and then double down on my new injuries by jumping from the 2nd floor balcony. Unfortunately, after I encountered Guy, Aoto's next door neighbor in 802 Everett Terrace, and one of the people in Aoto's address book, so a possible suspect, he confirmed Aoto loved baseball, which when I think back to it, there was a commemorative baseball in Aoto's safe. I don't know why this random NPC's interests are of importance, but I just thought it was cool. Printing him and asking for some spare change reveals that Guy is likely not a suspect. Yes, the begging was necessary to come to this conclusion. This is corroborated by the fact that he does not appear to wear heels and he's a shoe size of 8 to 10, so not 11. Considering my legs are still broken, I begin waddling around fueling my consumerism. Mostly I was looking for a clinic, but I did get a starch cola along the way. Applying the newly acquired splint to my face, it was time to get back on the case. Considering the City Hall went nowhere, for now at least, I head back to the apartment and re-examine things. Aoto does have an entry wound for an 8mm handgun, and although there is a gun matching that caliber on the scene, it's not the wound that actually ended his life. Regardless, I print the gun and find only Aoto's prints. So I guess this dumbass accidentally shot himself in the scuffle, proceeded to put his gun on the kitchen bench, and then walked back into his bedroom to get slashed. Another theory I haven't really drawn much attention to until now is also that it could be his co-worker Harriet. The officer guarding the apartment also has size 11 heels, so I decided to spend at least some amount of effort uncovering the identity of this officer. Unfortunately, asking them for their name and prints went nowhere. They didn't even accept a bribe for their identity, so it was time to try that address book, which has Aoto's contacts in it. Calling Harriet's number had a person answer stating that their name was Lucas. I of course asked them their name, and they replied as if I'd tell you. Yeah, buddy, you literally just did. One of the apartments in the book is close by, so I went and had a look, and the footprints entering were size 4. It's likely the murderer is not Louis, aka the resident of 101 Everett Terrace, but I knocked to question them anyway, which gave me about the same amount of information you could gather watching paint dry. This left 3 leads: the random cop outside, the address book, and the anagram. Revisiting the Epsilon Division, I acquire Harriet's address and go to speak to her. Her innocence is confirmed by primarily her shoe size, as well as numerous other factors. I did manage to confirm that she is not the cop guarding the apartment who won't even give me his first name for 200 fucking bucks. Anyways, it was time to track down the people in the address book, starting with the first names that can fit into the anagram. Assuming it's 2 names and not 1, on my way to the address of M.O.O.N, I happen across Louis, who is another name in the book, but also seemingly innocent. As I go to enter the apartment block of M.O.O.N, another murder is reported, this time at 204 Johnson View, so I turn straight around and sprint there instantly. As I'm entering, I encounter a kind lady. She proceeds to give me every single detail about her life, from fingerprint to birth certificate, and even gives me some change. Ebony Houston. It rings a bell. That would be because Ebony is one of the names in the address book, and it also happens to perfectly match the anagram E. Houston. We do a citizen's arrest, match her prints to those of the scene, provide her address, the murder weapon.
Right. Oh. A fucking vintage sword? No shit, she's murdering people with a sword. I'm taking that.
And her name, and wait for the results.
There we go. Case submitted. Processing. Please wait for results. I got all of it right. Yes!
100% correct. Now, with somewhat of an understanding of the game, I'd like to talk about the genre as more of a whole, that being one-block RPGs. Granted, it is extremely niche, so I've only ever really seen one other attempt at creating one. That would be Disco Elysium.
Your eyes burn with photosensitivity. It's not good. You reach out to grab the tie. Cop suffers final heart attack.
Well, it's 2 city blocks, but the point stands. Less equals more in this case. Having a small focused space to design a game in allows you to go very in depth with the characters and the interactions you can have with them. If you've ever played Game Dev Tycoon, imagine Shadows of Doubt has engine, gameplay, artificial intelligence, and graphics cranked up, while Disco Elysium is story and quests, dialogues, world design, and sound design cranked up. I bring up Disco Elysium not just because it's a fantastic game and you should play it, but because it's almost the direct opposite method of approach approaching a one-block RPG. You have Shadows of Doubt, which uses its small scale to try to create a free-flowing sandbox in which every game is different through sheer randomization, while Disco Elysium uses its small scale to tell a gripping narrative which includes world building out the wazoo, allowing you to even get a better grasp of the setting that lays outside the streets of Martine. The world itself becomes the most interesting character as you uncover the past, and much like Shadows of Doubt, every playthrough will be different. Unlike Shadows of Doubt, however, this isn't achieved through a free-flowing sandbox, but instead due to how much attention has been paid to each individual piece of the game. Every line is voice acted, and there are hundreds of branching options and consequences. It's worth noting that you also play a detective in Disco Elysium. What's up with these one-block RPGs and being a detective, you may wonder. I personally think it's because the role itself is built to be an observer, and when the game is an in-depth simulation or trying to tell a narrative, it's the perfect role to throw a player in as. As you uncover clues and the mysteries you unfurl in Shadows of Doubt, you also uncover the inner workings of the game and its simulation. You can have an effect on the world, but for the most part, you're just along for the ride, while in the case of Disco Elysium, you find fragments of attention and care to the narrative and setting it upholds. This gives Shadows of Doubt an interesting possibility that isn't open to Disco Elysium, due to their approach. Now, I think this isn't likely to ever come to the game, but imagine if you were the one committing the murders and trying to cover your tracks. This brings me to the limitations of the game. Now bear in mind, it is early access, and I did begin making this video the day after it released. But regardless, let me demonstrate them with some of the other cases I solved. It was somewhat put on display with how I caught Ebony, but a better example would be one murder case I had occur on the very top floor of a 12-story building. Due to the time of day, no one really was commuting to work, so all I had to do was stop and print the last person coming down the stairs. And ta-da! When I printed the scene, there was a match. This is part of the fact that Shadows of Doubt simulates the murders happening in real time, so there is also a possibility you could witness one happening. I can see this being not so much of an issue if, say, they were to alert you once the police had arrived to the scene rather than when it happens, because due to the size of the map, if you sprint to a murder location, you can generally solve the case in a couple of minutes, which simply isn't as satisfying, but bound to happen due to the nature of the game.
Why is this shit not marked as stolen? I can just sell it all back to her. Huh? Is this my apartment? I live here?
Oh yeah, and around the time that I got the splint during the first Ebony Houston case, I had to break into someone's house to look at their address to find my own apartment. But after finding it, I realized it marks me as trespass whenever I'm in there. And additionally, as you look through the shit in your apartment, you build a profile on your character, which is fine if you're playing as an amnesiac, but I'd assume you should start off with knowledge of yourself. I suppose it makes sense that you think you're trespassing when you're in home if you're suffering from memory loss though. The side jobs are a little scuffed as well. Like, this is supposed to be a photo of where a box I'm looking for is. It's clearly outside the map, and funnily enough, I recognized the area in the photo, so I went there, and it was not attainable anywhere in the building. As I've already somewhat addressed, large majority of the issues with the game simply come down to screw-ups with the procedural generation, like a vent going through someone's closet, rendering it unusable. This one's particularly common. Actually, now that I mention vents, holy shit are they fucky.
Oh, what in God's name?
Also, I'm not sure how much actual variety there is to the evidence you can attain. I completed 5 cases not including side jobs, granted on easy. I've started at highest difficulty save as of editing, but even in the 5 cases I did on easy, I was starting to fail at a lot of repeating processes. On the topic of needing to play more of the game, I'm not sure whether to classify it as a limitation or one of its The early game is a rather different experience to the late game. This comes down to the fact that you end up knowing pretty much everyone in the city. I'm not sure the game spawns in new ones to replace the murdered NPCs as well, but regardless, knowing everyone and having all their prints and work rotations, etc. provides a different experience when solving a case. It feels somewhat rewarding being able to walk into a scene and know pretty much immediately which of the cast of characters in your save committed the crime, but I could also see this as being somewhat of a detriment. I assume this is why the game has a set endpoint. Something that I'm sure you've noticed is the visual style. This game is absolutely beautiful and very reminiscent of games like Cube World. Through the use of a voxel art style mixed with modern day lighting effects, it creates an extremely unique stylization that I'm sure we will see more indie developers replicate in the years to come. Conceptually, this takes the cake for recent releases, and honestly, the execution isn't bad either. It's actually an extremely satisfying process chasing leads and solving cases. It's also thematically perfect that other than resources to lessen the survival elements, experiments and implants which provide small to large benefits, the main source of progression through playtime comes from the knowledge you accrue of your city block. I should address the aforementioned implants a bit more because the way they're intertwined into the gameplay is nice as well. Called sync discs, you can find them as well as their syringe upgrades in the safes of various businesses and homes you break into during your time solving cases. They provide perks like not having to deal with specific status effects, increasing the likelihood that an NPC will give you info, or even increasing/decreasing the height of your character as some examples. The simulation of the city is extremely impressive, and although I've found minor ways to take advantage of some of the mechanics like fucking with an NPC's schedule, the game does a great job of solving any incongruencies.
Ooh, what was that? Somebody in the pawn shop? Oh, fuck, the whole street wants to know what's going on, guys. Shit, what was that? What was that? Huh? Must have been the wind, bro. What the...
I highly recommend both Shadows of Doubt and, if you have not played it, Disco Elysium. Although I did not feature the latter as much, I did so not to spoil the experience it provides because it is truly unique. Referring to Shadows of Doubt, I recommend you play on a smaller map. Every workplace ends up having the roles filled out, and the mysteries can be a lot more challenging due to the close proximity of everyone compared to the challenge of the very large map being attempting to stop your house from burning down when your computer's GPU, CPU, power supply, and hard drives systematically explode due to the strain on the system that hours of running up and down flights of stairs causes. There is an absurd amount of potential, and although I'm not a fan of developers releasing incomplete games, this gets away with it due to the amount of content and polish there is already, making it feel more like a live game that's just receiving updates and associated bug fixes. Thanks for watching, and especially making it this far in the video. I hope you enjoyed the content, and if you did, like and subscribe. Oh yeah, and sorry about the incongruencies in the audio quality. I was doing a lot of chopping and changing with the script and the writing of the video, so re-recordings ended up sounding a little bit goofy.
I'm a frog.
Like, I don't even know where this came from.
Should play it, but because it almost directly